Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michaela, for having us here. It's so wonderful, such a privilege to be here at the Y in discussion with these fantastic writers about this really unusual and extremely original book. It's a biography, it's a novel. We'll talk about what it is. You probably know Anne's book, The Postcard, which is a combination detective story and family history that starts when your mother, both of your mother, receives a postcard with the names of family members who died in the Holocaust. And the book traces Anne and her mother's search together with her for the person who sent the postcard, which uncovers a lot of mysterious, unknown family history along the way. And this book, Gabriele, is different. Gabrielle, right? Gabrielle, okay. Is different but related. It examines the life of your great-grandmother, Gabriële Buffet, who is married to the painter, Francis Picabia. Not a household name, at least not for me, but I was fascinated to read about his paintings in this book and found myself searching for them online. So as the parents of young children, this pair together became romantically involved with the artist Marcel Duchamp, who I'm sure you all have heard of, which the book jacket describes as a fervent relationship that will change the course of art history and redefine the avant-garde. And when I read this on the jacket, I thought, oh, this is hyperbole. And actually, it isn't. This is not an exaggeration. You suggest in the book that she may actually have come up with the idea of abstract art. It's amazing. I mean, the light that this sheds, the sort of reframing of art history from the male-dominated story that we know so well to something a little bit different is one of the many fascinating things about the book. And one question that I'd like to get into in our conversation is the extent of your great-grandmother's influence on both of these men as art, and both of these men and many others as artists. But you'll start us off with a reading.
So, do you hear me well? Yeah? Hi to everybody. We are very honored to be here. And so I will try a little bit of reading, and sorry for my terrible accent, and I hope you will understand most of it. Okay, so that's the first chapter, and it was a good way to start because you have a little look about Gabrielle. She doesn't particularly catch the eye at first. There is no flamboyance in her average stature, her demure figure, her long chestnut hair pulled into a low chignon, her outfit dark and alluring but never revealing. There is nothing sweet about Gabriële Buffet's face, no whimsy in it. Her chin, especially, is too large. Her forehead, too. Her eyes are narrowed in perpetual thought, like two cold black slits beneath strongly marked brows that obscure the color of her irises. This woman, neither beautiful nor ugly, is something else. If you're curious enough to study her unremarkable face at more length, you see that the corners of her pale mouth curve upward like the wings of a bird in flight, that her cheekbones stand out prominently. The overall impression is terribly determined. Her gaze invites you to look into it, to follow it. In 1908, Gabrielle is 27 years old. She's in Berlin to complete the musical studies she began in Paris. She's an independent young woman. No husband, no children, no attachments. Her life is good, carefree, more like a young man's. She earns money playing in orchestras. She's not accountable to anyone. Gabriële has just spent the summer in a Swiss chalet with her new friends from Berlin. There, she had a startling encounter. At the time, in the area around Geneva, there were a lot of holiday cottages rented by Russians. And I met Lenin, because he was staying next door to me. I saw him coming out of the house once, but that's as far as it went. Though I did notice that he was very handsome. Family legend has it that Gabriële had a fling with Lenin. There is no documented proof of this, and we are skeptical. But what's interesting is that the story exists. The idea, perpetuated through the decades, that Gabriële was only attracted to revolutionaries, whether political or artistic.
You know, hearing you read that after having read the book makes me long for that she might have indeed had an affair with Lenin. The whole course of the 20th century might well have been quite different.
Oh yeah.
not just the art world, but
yeah,
oh well,
true.
as you say, we don't know. And so in the postcard, Anne writes about the way, as I'm just quoting here, some sense of memory makes us attracted to places our ancestors knew, celebrate dates that were important in the past, and become drawn to people whose family once crossed paths with ours without our even knowing it. And you call this psychogenealogy or cellular memory, something more than chance. And it reminded me of a passage that I read years ago in a book by the French philosopher Sarah Kaufmann called Rue Ordonnée, Rue là-bas, in which she describes a similar phenomenon. She writes as if it's her family's Holocaust history is literally guiding her steps as she walks along. And I wondered if you both could talk about some of the ways that this has played out for you, this sort of sense of things feeling predetermined in this way, either in the context of Gabriële's story or your other work, however you see it.
Tu commences peut-être avec la carte postale, la psychogénéalogie, comme tu vois, nos ancêtres sont avec nous, et est-ce que c'est prédéterminé tout ça?
Yes, I am I was very interested in psychogenealogy because when I was something like 25, 27, I was going through a kind of depression, and I met a woman, and she said that she could help me by curing my family tree. I said, okay. And for me, it was, now when I'm thinking about it, it's something like a milestone in my life, because she said to me, you have to draw your family tree in front of me. I had made researches before our appointment, and she said to me, you have to ask a question to your family tree. I was 25, and I asked to my family tree, how could I become a writer? And through this unique science, through this unique meeting with this woman, she explained me how my ancestors will allow me to become a writer. And then and I'm a little bit different with my sister about that. Me, I really believe in ghosts. Mm. Maybe you too now, I don't know. Maybe you change your mind.
I will answer.
Okay. But for me, it's not like a metaphor. I really think that...
You see them?
I hear them. And especially, I can feel them when I'm writing. And so, because of this relationship with these people, that I can really feel when they are from my family, that's why writing Gabriële with my sister, so that's the previous book before the postcard, I could feel, you know, as a musician, when a musician can feel when he play right or not the notes. Writing Gabriële, I could feel that when I'm writing with my about my ancestors, I'm like a musician who plays right.
Okay, so do you believe in ghosts?
Yeah, in a few words. One thing I would like to say is that it's so wonderful for us to be two writers. Maybe not for our parents, I don't know, but for us it's so great to be two because we are very different. And Anne, her country of writing, her land of writing, her skills, and her ghost connection, you know, she carries all that for her, but for me too. And I must say, I am so happy that the postcard exists. This book is so important for me, but I will never have written it, you know, never. It's not my country of writing. And so, lucky for me, my sister did it, and I can enjoy, and I know that our ancestors, they are in this book, and they are taken care of. But that's true, I'm a little bit more the atheist of the family, you know, even if, like, as you probably know, atheists, they love signs and they believe in signs, they believe in all that stuff, but in a different way. But I know when I have a ghost question, so I have sometimes ghost question, I ask Anne, and so that's good, I can ask her, but maybe to be accurate about Gabriële, our great-grandmother, we didn't know anything about her when we started, and I approached her maybe more as a character, a stranger, an interesting stranger, but someone I would create as if she was born from me and not me, I was born from her. And Anne probably approached her more like a ghost and our great-grandmother. But what's great is we are two, and our differences is a huge strength.
Great. So I really want to know more about this. So you never met your great-grandmother, and you just said you didn't know anything about her story. So walk us through a little bit the process of how you came to write this book. What made you want to tell her story, and how did you start to put it together?
Tu veux commencer sur le désir, puis je continue.
Ça, c'est un truc.
Je te laisse faire, puis je continue.
So, above all, our dream was to write a book together, because we are both writers, and we wanted to. It started with the will of working with 4 hands, which was in reality a deep desire to play together. When just like when we were kids, that's exactly the same thing. And we wanted, in a way, to travel back to travel back in time of our childhood. And because when we were kids, we were in our bubble. We spent hours and hours and days, just two of us, playing with our dolls. And writing a book together was exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And but we needed a topic. And one day, I don't know why, but I believe in chance. Yes. It was the summer, and I don't know why, I decided to read an enormous biography of Marcel Duchamp, which is not a summer reading. And so I was near the swimming pool with this huge book, and suddenly, reading it, I saw the name of our great-grandmother. And I discovered that she was the first love of Marcel Duchamp. And I discovered that she was in the famous painting, The Bride. She was a bride. And I discovered that they had a love triangle with Francis. I discovered that she was so cool. So I called Claire, and I told her, okay, I think we have our topic.
Wow.
Yeah, and maybe I could explain a little bit the context, why we didn't know anything about her, and so the process. So Anne noticed the name. We knew her name, Gabriële Buffet, but that was almost all we knew, her name, and that she was our great-grandmother. But that's it. It was a shock for Anne to read all that thing, in the book.
Did you think maybe this is some other Gabriële Buffet?
No, because we know there is just one Gabriële Buffet, one and only. And so, to give you a little bit of context, and maybe you read the postcard, so you already knew some of the story. But our mother, she grew up almost completely alone because on her family side, the family on her mother's side, all of her family were murdered in Auschwitz. Her mother obviously, survived. So there was no grandparents there, like no uncle, no aunt. And on the father side, so the Picabia side, her father, so our grandfather, he committed suicide at 27 years old. Our mother was just 3 years old. And so she almost, didn't know him. And one very sad thing is that the grandparents, so the Picabia and Gabrielle, the couple, they didn't really take care of her, okay? And probably they felt guilty about the suicide of their son, and they wanted to put that on the side, away, and they just leave this little girl. So here we are, years later, and our mother, she grew up by herself in a way, and she knows a bit about her family, but she kind of hates them, because of all that context. But our mother is a complicated woman, so it's not just black or white, obviously. And sometimes she would say something about our grandparents, just, one or two words to us. And one thing about Gabrielle, her grandmother, she would say, Gabrielle, la terrible Gabrielle. So the terrible Gabrielle, So we had the sense there was some kind of trouble here or something that we don't get. And what we felt was there was some kind of secret, some kind of, taboo something hidden behind the curtains. And as you know, children, they love to go where things are hidden, you know. They want to open the closet to see all the skeletons and the ghosts and everything. And probably when we were adults, both writers, like Anne said, we wanted maybe to play like when we were kids together, but we maybe went to a treasure hunt, to exploration, investigation, to discover the secrets of our childhood and the secrets of our mother's family.
So one thing that is so unusual about this book is the way it includes these little snippets of dialogue between the two of you as you process Gabrielle's story. And I'll just read a tiny little bit from these lines. This is on page 116. And so one thing here is we don't know who's talking. You don't identify who speaks which lines. But one of you says, "It's really sinking in for me that neither one of us really knows anything about Gabrielle and Francis. We know nothing about their everyday lives, or even the major events. I'm feeling it more and more deeply as we write this book. It's like a slap in the face if you think about it." And then the other one says, "I feel it too. It's bizarre. The more we learn about them, the more shocked I am by how little we actually know." And this passage I thought was so striking because it comes right after this very intimate description, intimate, detailed description of Gabrielle and Francis living together in Cassis, their daily routine, and her pregnancy, and so on. And so I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you came to write this book in the way that you did, and how you understand it in terms of genre. And we spoke a little bit earlier about how in America we draw this very firm and artificial distinction between fiction and nonfiction, which is something that's not found in European publishing at all. But this book, I've seen it referred to in different ways, different places, as a biography, but also as a true novel, which is a term we don't use in America almost at all, which is such a shame, right? Because the hybrid is the most interesting. And so I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your journey to this form and what it means to you.
Je peux dire quelques mots sur la recherche, comment on a trouvé tout ça, et après toi tu enchaînes sur le roman vrai et tu expliques pourquoi c'est un roman vrai.
Peut-être par des recherches, des notes, et peut-être moi je peux expliquer qu'on échangeait, comment on échangeait pour trouver une voix.
Alors vas-y, tu veux commencer? Sorry, sisters, you know.
Non, vas-y, après...
Le truc de roman vrai, qu'est-ce qui est vrai, qu'est-ce qui est pas vrai, tu vois tout ça, parce que
d'accord,
t'es dessus. Sorry, okay. Just, we're trying to figure out, you know, the best way to answer, and, okay. Maybe I will say a few words about how we came from nothing on Gabrielle, and we find a lot. And Anne will explain to you a little bit about true novel, this idea, this hybrid, you say, this hybrid form of a novel. And so just a few ideas about how we met her and to go so deeply into her intimacy. It was just a huge amount of work, research. We really went on a journey to discover all the pieces about her that we can, and more and more we were doing it, more and more it was giving us the sense that yes, she has been so important for all the art painters, musicians, poets at her time, because one way to find Gabrielle was to go to explore all the people she knew at that time, all of her friends, all of her, you know, companions, because they all talking about her, you know. We talk about Duchamp, Apollinaire, the French poet, really important French poet, very close to her, but there is so much. Stravinsky, the musician, Calder, Brancusi, they have all known her, but the most important in their memoirs, in their letters, they all say how important she was for their work, for their art. Because Gabriële was some kind of, midwife for the brain and for the artistic process. She helped the other to figure out where they should go. Either they were musicians, painters, poets, writers. She has this huge, talent to help people to become themselves. So we spend so much time to just follow, like the little stones, in all the life of all of these guys, very famous guys. And of course, archives. We went to talk about art historians. We were talking to curators of museums. It took maybe 2 years, and we gathered a file with more than 1,000 pages of notes and everything. And we found letters, and we found writings she wrote that completely, you say, inédit, like nobody has seen before, unpublished. We found a lot of treasures in our treasure hunt, and so we gathered all that. And then we were ready to try to write together, Gabriële, and maybe Anne could explain a little bit how we managed to do that and all the process of the true novel, roman vrai.
Yes, I often say that I write true novels. So what does that mean? It means that everything is true. And to write Gabriële and to write the postcard, we had to know everything as if we were scholars, as if we were historians. We worked so hard. We read I don't know how many books. But then, when everything is gathered, when everything is in our heads, we have to forget everything. To write a novel, you have to know everything to forget everything. Because we want to write in a novelistic way. In French, we have one word to say histoire, l'histoire. It's the same word to say story and history. But in fact, story and history often come into friction. And so I will give you an example with the postcard. So in the postcard, my investigation takes 4 months. But in reality, it took 4 years. But if I would written the 4 years, it would have been so boring. But what is important is that I have a pact of truth with the readers. And I think that it's okay for the reader if I twist the timeline. But they want to be sure that everything I say about the investigation is true. That's why it's a true novel. And for example, for the postcard, I truly met a private detective. I truly met this amazing graphologist named Jesus. And I couldn't have made it up because I don't have imagination. But I have the knowledge of how, as if I were, this word is so difficult to say, a broader. So all my beads are true, toutes mes perles how do you say
Beads.
beads? All my beads are true, but it's my own pattern. And I choose the way I will organize it. So that's why, that's how I define a true novel. And for Gabriële, for us it was difficult because when the book came out, we came in France with a new theory. We told to all the historians, hey guys, you forgot someone. And this someone is Gabriële Buffet, and she's like the brain of all these guys. It was not easy to come and to say that. And so that's why, for example, in the French edition, you have all the footnotes because we wanted to prove that it was true. In the American edition, you have the bibliography, not the footnotes. But even if you have the footnotes, the references, the sources, it's written as if these characters came out of our imagination. Because we try to write and giving them flesh, blood, hearts, and colors.
Well, you absolutely managed to accomplish that. In a few minutes, I'll open it up to your questions, but I'm going to monopolize you for a little bit longer. You talked about, so first I want to know, what was the reaction from these guys, the art historians, when you told them that they forgot to include the story of this woman in French art history?
In a strange way, because they don't like it, obviously, they support us. We had a lot of articles in the newspaper and in art magazines too. We were really anxious about all that, but some of the articles were written by historians, and they really said, you see that in English, you put a knee on the floor, you just to say, okay, not to get married, just to say, okay. And they did it.
Yes,
all
but
of them.
They didn't want to meet us before.
Yes, and some of them, when we were in this journey to do all the researches, so we called all of them, we tried to meet them a lot. They say okay, and they were okay to get interviewed, and they were really like good sports. And a lot of them were saying it's a great topic. You're completely right. Gabriële was so important, and that's true that she disappears from the books. So a lot of them gave us clues before the book that we were on the right, we were going the right way. So that was good for us. And that's true that some of them didn't want to meet us, and they were probably really like mad after the book went out. But nobody came and said, that's not the truth. It was impossible because our work was so solid. All the footnotes in the French edition, we were so precise that, it was like really, really well, how do you say, built. And now Gabriële exists in the idea of art history. It's a beginning. And so that's a great achievement for us, yeah.
So, but I'm interested also in the reception of the postcard in France, because in that book there is a kind of lingering fear about anti-Semitism, right? There's a fear that those names that appear on the postcard might present some kind of threat, that they might have been sent as a warning or a kind of harassment. And you talk in that book about a comment made at your daughter's school, right? That your daughter hears a classmate make an anti-Semitic comment at school. And so I'm curious, have you experienced anything like that in the reception of the postcard?
I don't know how to answer. It's not easy.
Peut-être qu'au moment de la sortie de la carte postale, les temps étaient plus simples par rapport à aujourd'hui, je dirais, peut-être, tu vois, par rapport à l'antisémitisme.
Of course, there is a before and after 7th October. It's very difficult to talk about anti-Semitism now in France. It's so painful and so complex.
Did you worry about anti-Semitism when you were writing the postcard?
Yes, I was not. I was conscious, but I had no fear. And then I experiment fear now.
Maybe I would say that the answer to the postcard book of Anne was huge in France and very great. It was a few years ago. It went out in France
it was 4
in
years,
2021, if I'm not wrong. It was in 21, and at that time we were maybe less anxious about all that, and it has been a great audience for the book. And I can give you the example when I am in book festival, to sign my books and to make talks about my books. A lot of people come to talk to me about the postcard, which is great. I love it, you know, because they talk to about my books too, sometimes, of course, but when they come to sign a book, they say, I want to tell you that I love the book of your sister, the postcard, and it's so important for me. And so I could really measure how the postcard was so important to so much people. Yes. And still now, when we are signing books when I'm signing book for other things, still now, like years after, people come to talk to me about the postcards. So that's for sure. But that's true that since, you know, October 7th, in France, it's difficult, for the Jewish people, and it's difficult to talk about it because we can feel it, but you know it's a strong political topic. It's very complex, so we can't just say a few words like that. It's a huge topic. But one thing is sure is that when we measure this answer for your book, we know that that's a good sign. That's a great sign. This book was very important, and not just for Jewish people. It was very important for a lot of people in France.
Yes, that's true.
If he thinks it's correct.
But it's true that, for example, for the Women's Day, a French magazine asked me to record a little video, and I decided to promote a book of Iranian women, and we were 5 writers to record videos, and I was the only one I received in 3 hours more than 100 messages of haters, and not the other. So, and I was just promoting the book of the Peace Nobel Prize, Narges Mohammadi. So it had nothing to do with Israel, nothing to do with Palestine. It was just about women. And so that's just an example, and that's crazy.
That's crazy, yeah. All right, so I think it's time for us to open it up to audience questions. I can't actually see the audience because of the light, so maybe they could be turned down a little bit so I could call on somebody.
Yes?
Okay, yes.
Hi. Hello.
Hey, very nice to see you. How did your mother react to the book?
Okay, so I'm
Gabriële?
going to repeat the question so that people who are on Zoom can hear everything. And the question is, how did your mother react to this book, Gabriële?
Peut-être raconter?
Oh yeah. Oh, there's a story interesting. Is that so we finished the book, but it was not printed. It was not out yet. It was before. Of course, we wanted to give it to our mother for her to read and to give us her opinion. So we did. We gave the text, you know, and a few times pass, and I have my mother our mother on the phone, and I say, "Hey, Mom, so did you read it or part of it?" Yeah, it's great. And I was like, okay. And then I added on the phone, I say, she didn't read it. Okay, here we come, it's not yet, you know. And a few time passed, and at one point she called, and she said, I read the book. And she was like a lot of emotions about it, and I knew that time she really read it, you know, that she was not lying to us. That's a good story, and maybe you can say why probably she didn't feel betrayed by it, and why she was supportive to us.
I think that, you know, we were like two bad daughters because we did something she didn't want, to write about her grandmother and to say that her grandmother was an amazing woman. So she was hungry, but we did it together. Yeah. And for a mother, having her two daughters rocking together is so good. Yeah. So it was like a little bit tricky. And she was in a corner.
Yeah.
Because in one hand she was furious, and the other hand she was so proud and happy as a mother.
That's right. Maybe one thing is that we wrote the book for her at the end of the day. It was for her. And maybe, I don't know if you know, but her first name is Lelia. And Lelia in Hebrew, it means like the night. And we knew that growing up, it was hard for her to have all of the night around because she didn't know her family. She was not taken care of. She was on her own. And so she was carrying with her name this big night. And we did all this book, of course, to bring Gabriële from the shadow into the spotlight, to make people know about Gabriële and all these crazy adventures she had with all these fellow artists. But at the end of the day, we really wanted to put some light into the night of our mother. Mm. And she knows, even if she's not good at talking, you know, about emotions and stuff like that, but she knows that, and it's a very strong bond between her and us, you know.
Tu peux dire aussi qu'en général, c'est les parents qui racontent aux enfants leur histoire, ouais. Et que là, c'est nous qui... Ouais.
And one other interesting thing is that usually parents or grandparents, they are telling the stories about family to the children to know their roots and where they come from. No, it makes the other way around, you know. We told our mother you come from here, and it's beautiful, and you can be proud, and you have roots. You're not just floating alone into the night. You have roots. And I think it was good for her.
Yeah.
You're both writers. I'm interested how you divided up the research, the writing, and the editing between the two of you, since you both have this talent.
So the question is about process. How do they divide up the research and the writing? And I'm also very curious about this.
Well, for the research, so we decided to split. And for example, okay, you will work on this year, I will work on this year. And so it was easy. But then we had to write the book. And the problem was that we had very different styles. And that we wanted to write something coherent. And so we decided to do something that we called the literary ping pong. It meant that each of us wrote a draft, a piece, and then we exchanged it. And we wrote what the other had written.
Entirely.
Entirely. And you can imagine how difficult is it for writers to accept that someone else will rewrite your sentences. It's something, normally it's impossible because writers have too much ego. But in our case, first, because we are sisters, it was okay to do that because she is me, I am her. It's weird, but it's okay. And because also at the end, there is one name of the cover. So for the power dynamic and the question of ego, that's more simple. And also, in that way, we wanted to find a new voice and something unique, which is the fusion of our two voices. But I couldn't do it with someone else.
I could add, it was a ping pong because we did an extension once. We did it again and again and again and again. So we
until we didn't know.
Maybe it was 20, go back and forth between the two of them. And the goal was, at one point, we couldn't say who wrote what. And I must say, we realized that we managed to do it because when we were doing all the correction of the text before it was going to print, it happened for us to say, sorry, and this sentence, I don't think it's really good. We need to change it. And she was like, you wrote it. Say, no, you wrote it. We say, okay, it worked.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could talk. One part of the book, there were so many parts of the book that were so emotional to read about. Could you talk about the fact that you talked or found out that the two sisters who wanted to be writers, I believe it was Nomi and Emma, do I remember that correctly?
Ah, yes, in the postcard.
Yeah, in the postcard.
In postcards. And that you went and found out that you went to the same school that
Yes.
they had gone to.
Yes.
And here you are again, repeating in
Yes.
the world, in life, two sisters who find out that they went to the same school as the two other sisters, and how that impacted you to realize that you were repeating. Talk about fate, talk about goals, talk about what's the expression, genealogy?
Psychogenealogy. So the question is about the postcard, about the ways in which Anne discovered that their own life story as sisters was repeating the stories of their ancestors.
Yes, when I discovered that Noémie, she wanted to be a writer, something that we didn't know, because I discovered it while writing the postcard. So we already were writers when I discovered it. And when I discovered that, yes, I went to this school where my grandmother and her sister went, and all these coincidences. And crazy coincidences. So when I discovered the novel that Noémie wanted to write, and that the heroine was named Anne. That is my first name. So it was too much. It was, and so it was so incredible that I needed, and also that our two Hebrew first names, my second name is Miriam, and Claire, her second name is Noémie. So it's a lot, just like. Oh. And so that's why it was so important for me to invite Claire into my book, The Postcard, because I needed to talk with her about it.
That was a beautiful, interesting passage, exchanging and repeating your emails.
Yes, it was it's a part of the book, and it was yes, crucial for me to have Claire in the book in that way, and to talk about this topic, which means what does that mean being two sisters, 2 generations after, with these names and with all that mess about being writer and blah, blah, blah.
We have time maybe for one more question? Okay, in the front.
It's a little more of a mundane question, but in terms of the family tree, I'm trying to get straight in my mind Miriam's relationship to Gabriële.
Miriam was the daughter-in-law. You say that in English?
Yes, we do.
So it means Gabriële and Francis, they had 4 kids. Okay. The fourth, it's Vicente, Lorenzo Vicente, it's our grandfather.
Miriam's husband.
And
exactly.
he married Vicente, he married Miriam Rabinovich during World War II. And our mother was born in 1944, at the end of the war. And then 3 years after, Vicente died, committed suicide. So Gabriële, Miriam was her daughter-in-law, and actually Gabriële helped Miriam during the war, je vais te laisser expliquer, helped Miriam during the war to not being caught by the Nazis. And maybe Anne can explain a bit more about that.
Yes, but I don't want to spoil the book because it's so crazy. But
just
yes,
That's why
yes, and so it's thanks to her marriage with Vicente that Miriam was not anymore on the list, the police list in Normandy, because she was married with this guy in Paris. So that's why when the policemen came, they said we have only 2 kids on the list, and she escaped in the back door. And that's all the story and what happened after and how she escaped.
But to give maybe just a postcard, Gabriële is 60 years old. And so she is helping Miriam, and she's
in the network.
The network of resistance. In our book, Gabriële, most of the book, it's between 1910 and 1919. And it's the moment where the young Gabriële, she met Francis Picabia became her husband, and it's all about also World War I. So in France, Gabriële was published first. Postcard was published after, and it was, chronological, you see that? And here in the US, Postcard came first, and so Gabriële, it's a little bit, as you say, a prequel, yes. And yeah, comes second.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much to you both.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
They will be, of course, signing books, so I encourage you to pick up your own copy of Gabriële. Thank you so much for being here.